Hello, guys. I got to do something just a little bit different for you today. I'm going to show you deck tech here of my Deathcloud deck. I've been playing it for a little while now. I actually just got back from my vacation. There's a lot of stuff I want to upload, a lot of stuff I want to do. Though I've been strangely hooked on Heroes of Might and Magic 3. Felt a little nostalgic, so I've been playing that for a long time today. But I did get some games in with this deck. Um, I was finally able to make one last change to it that I thought about for a while. I wanted to get a third Raniteers in my board, which I just added. You can play Fulminator Mages too. It doesn't really make a huge difference. I kind of like the idea of Raniteers hitting basics, but I'll get to that later. And I moved the Kalatos Trader of Get to the main and dumped the Primal Command that I've been using for a long time. It's just a little bit too awkward, though. It did have a really good ability against especially aggro decks of pretty much time walking them. But this deck is already so damn good against aggro, it just didn't seem necessary. And the Kalatas moving to main lets me keep the amount of graveyard hate I want for certain matchups like Chord of Calling and get the extra Raniteers for Tron, which is probably one of the toughest matchups this deck has. Though I feel like you've got a little bit more game against it than traditional Jund style decks, which is very similar to how this deck plays because it's very grindy. Um, I'll go over the mana base first, since it's in the first row. We're playing 6 forests. The reason we have a slightly higher forest count than normal is we're playing these 3 Utopia Sprawls here. And with the 6 forests, 5 fetch lands. Also notable, I don't actually own 4 Verdant Catacombs on MTGO. I would definitely run all 4 of these in paper, since I do own them offline. It hasn't made a huge difference, but it's definitely something to note that you definitely want to be playing 4 Verdant Catacombs. And then +1 fetch at that point I don't think really matters too much which way you put it, because my mana has been working fine with strictly worse mana base. Um, Probably swamp, just because actually no, probably forest, just to keep the count higher for the Utopia Sprawl. Plus you're already going to be +1 swamp from the Verdant Catacomb switch anyway. Mainly just because there's less total swamps in the deck as well. I'm only running 2 Overgrown Tombs here. So 6 forests there, and hopefully that would be 5 fetches there, which gets you to 11, and then 12, 13, which should be more than enough to hit your Utopia Sprawls. 3 swamps, definitely important to have at least 3 of them in there. You end up fetching a swamp much more often with the Sakura Tribe Elder than you do forest, though not always the case, but in general. Um, 2 Overgrown Tombs has felt fine. I really haven't felt a necessity to play the 3rd copy. Definitely want to be able to fetch that out with your fetch lands. It's good to just have a couple duels as far as mana fixing goes in those slots. As far as taking extra damage, I really don't see a reason to run a 3rd copy, though I potentially you could, if you really wanted to try maybe squeeze out a extra Treetop Village instead of a Hissing Quagmire, though the Hissing Quagmire's been fine. It's obvious. I don't really think it's as good as this card, but I like that it taps for both colors. So you might be able to, if you're willing to take hedge a little bit and take a little bit more damage from Overgrown Tomb, or perhaps even just upgrading to the 4 Verdant Catacombs lets you run an extra Treetop Village, though. The idea of drawing like 3 of them has been not necessarily something I want to see. This has been pretty good. Not as good for attacking. A little bit better for defending, and in grind mirrors it's a little bit better, and just having a man land in general in a 3rd man land slot has felt fairly good. I don't want to run too many tap lands either. Got the single Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Never want to draw 2 of those because it's a legendary land, but mana fixes to black. Single Golgari Rat Farm, which is because it can, in this grindy type of deck, can create card advantage, as well as has synergy with the 3 Garruk Wild Speakers I play. Can untap for 2. Similar to when you play Utopia Sprawl, also has synergy with the Garruk Wild Speaker. Getting extra mana out of that. But yet again, I don't want to play multiple copies of this card, because drawing 2 is just kind of like horrible. It's almost like getting multiple Chrome Mox bad. It's too much of a tempo loss. 2 Treetop Villages are excellent. Pretty much, in my opinion, maybe the best man land out there. It's just so cheap to activate. 3/3, gets trample. Excellent yet again. With the Gruk, you can plus a single time, and even if you maybe left a Sakura Tribe Elder on the field and you maybe have a Kitchen Finks or Witness, just animating this and overruns getting lethal much quicker than you'd think. Also good once you've grinded the game down to nothing, it just finishing opponents off. So very important. I also play a single Twilight Mire. To mana fix and switch. Don't want to play multiple of those just because taps were colorless. Don't want to draw multiple of those. And the single Woodland Cemetery has been pretty good. Pretty much is always online with the number of basics we play. So the mana base has felt fairly solid. A lot of people play this style deck, play 24 lands. I felt like I didn't need the 24th land, especially with the Utopia Sprawls, as well as the Sakura Tribe Elders. If you look at my just mana as this, half my deck is already mana, just in the first 3 slots, not even counting the Guruk or Eternal Witness, sometimes picking back up a fetch, etc. I definitely think the 5th fetch is good. I've seen some lists that just run 4 Verdant Catacombs. You want to have the fetch. Being able to pick it up with the Witness is very important, as well as just having cards in your graveyard for the Tassiger later. So I definitely think the 5th fetch is good. Only playing 4 discards. Only one of them is Thoughtseize in the main. I do have a extra Thoughtseize in the side, which will get brought in against decks where you want to take their powerful control cards out of their hand. It even comes in against Tron just to get rid of disgusting threats that are very difficult to deal with, like a Wormcoil Engine. The Inquisitions in general are better because they're better against the aggro decks. And Inquisition plus a Finks, and all of a sudden you have a very, very, very good game against aggro. Part of the reason I like playing this deck is it just smashes aggro decks in general. Yeah, the Inquisitions I feel like are a little bit better. You want to be popping the spell early in the game anyway. You want to be taking quick plays. This deck already has pretty good game against Thought-Knot Seer and the Eldrazi decks, etc., with all the Deathclouds. The Inquisitions has just been better than Thoughtseize's main deck. The 2-life is definitely relevant. Though, why don't I play this sweet-looking one main? Strict upgrade. Put the ugly one in the side. Alright. Okay. So Utopia Sprawl, this card's been amazing for me. Some people like to use them in this build. Some people don't like them. I can't see not liking them. I definitely like the 3 setup. I actually built this original deck off of someone who played this deck back when the Eldrazi decks had the extra Eye of Ugin. And I think the reason he did so well with this deck and even chose to play this deck was because it had just such a good game against the Eldrazi aggro deck. And but that really doesn't have much to do with the Utopia Sprawl other than the speed. But that's where I got the original proportions for this deck. And this guy ran 3. And I can understand because you don't really want multiple Utopia Sprawls. It's not horrible, but you definitely want to draw 1. And you also don't want to completely overload yourself here, because if other people are playing some kind of land destruction, you're already playing this comes into play, tap double land, and playing these, so you don't want to get blown out by other players' land destruction. But it's definitely very, very good synergy, because when you're ramping, when you hit Deathcloud, you're going to have extra lands on the board when you finally pop it. If you happen to have a Guruk on the field, you could be going down to just a single land, and if it's got a Utopia Sprawl on it, very, very good. Actually, if you're untapping Utopia Sprawl with the Deathcloud, you're just completely wiping everything and going to Hellbent. And this deck is very, very good playing from Hellbent with Liliana's, Eternal Witnesses, and Kitchen Finks top decks when it's most of the time when you're not using a Guruk or something like that. With just a number of mana sources on the field. Since Deathcloud's got that 3 black casting, you're going to have 3 lands left typically, and the rest is going to be gone. That's why you'll notice I have tons of 3 drops here. So I've got a huge number of excellent top decks here at 3. While the Pulse is not necessarily great from that position, it is if they get something decent. And all the Finxes have incredible synergy with the Deathcloud as well, just because they come back when they die. But they're also great to draw immediately after a Deathcloud, considering your opponent gets the first draw. I've got 4 removals here at 2. I play 3 Abrupt Decays. Abrupt Decays are just too good against the field. They can answer so many different cards. I wanted to have at least 3 spells on the other side as far as my regular removal that takes care of pretty much anything. The Pulses in general were just better than Putrefies or anything else. They just hit so many different cards. Good against so many decks. The fact that their sorcery speed hasn't mattered as much. The fact that they can 2 for 1 definitely has. The reason I run the Victim Knight, it's very easy to make double black, and I wanted another card for my curve here at 2, because I'm already running 12 3 drops, and I didn't want to overload it any further. And I definitely felt like what I've got here is good. 3 Liliana of the Veil. She's absolutely excellent. The expensive staple in this deck for sure, considering it's a green deck not running Tarmogoyf. If you don't get a Deathcloud, she's an easy way to win. does very similar things. If you get both, it's absolutely disgusting. Like you get a Liliana and a Garruk and you pop a Deathcloud, there's not much that can stop that. Gives us game against a lot of the decks that aren't the aggro style decks. Gets you into that hellbent grind mode, and people will try to attack her and do whatever they can to stop her. She also is a removal, so you can consider them 3 more removal slots here in the Liliana. You can make them sack. You can play Lilianas into Lilianas after plussing them. She is just absolutely disgusting. Drawing multiple isn't great. It's not necessarily horrible. I could see running 4. I tried running 2 for a while. It's just not as good as 3. 4 is maybe overload, but 3 feels absolutely perfect. Probably the best card in the deck other than Deathcloud. Sets everything up for this kind of grindy, jundy type game. 3 Eternal Witnesses. Yet again, this makes the top decks after Deathcloud absolutely excellent. Early game, picking a fetch back up means you can get to the right Deathcloud number to finish someone off, as well as just curve out your hand incredibly well. But she can also be used to pick up every single one of these removal spells, as well as I'm even running a 4th copy in the sideboard because you can pick up incredibly relevant spells for whatever matchup they're very, very important for you. Whether you're picking up a Planeswalker you've lost, something to wipe the field because you're playing against an aggressive deck, a Finks because you just need to finish someone off, or even, just to fetch early in the game, or another discard spell if you got a quick start with maybe, say, a Utopia Sprawl. Just very, very versatile, very, very good at almost any stage in the game and how we're making our plan work here. Also beats for 2, so that works just fine. Kitchen Finks, we're running all 4 out of the main deck. I notice a lot of people like to run some in the sideboard. I think this card is main deckable, and this is one of the reasons to play this deck. The 4 Finks makes the aggro matchup a joke. Not only is it incredibly good at stomping aggro, it's just a really, really powerful creature in general. It can block almost anything, gets you the 2-for-1 value off the Deathcloud, is almost the perfect blocker for Liliana of the Veil. Very often you'll have Liliana and Finks in your hand, and you will opt to play the Finks first, and then because we do run tap lands, the second turn you can either play your tap land in your Liliana, or potentially fire off an Inquisition or something like that. Maybe you already had a Sakura out, definitely depends, but if you have both of these, unless the field is already clear, it's usually better just to play this out in front of the Liliana. 2 main deck Damnations. We don't really play Tarmogoyfs. We're not playing Dark Confidence, nothing that we really care about wrathing away, so we're allowed to play main deck Damnations, which is good against the entire field, really. They're really good against the other Jund decks, as well as the Collected Company type decks that are kind of similar to this in the Kitchen Finks mirrors, as well as we get to play the Colossus Tyrant of Get. Yet again, I'm just playing 1, so I can never possibly draw 2 and screw myself on Legendary Rule. And it's just not like super amazing. It's really, really good in some decks. It's obviously amazing in any kind of Kitchen Finks mirror in that it can block it, kill it, and give you a 2/2 instead of them a 2/1. Well, you gain the life. So that is definitely a slayer of Kitchen Finks. The Jund matchup is actually, I'd say it's about even. But like them getting to play multiple of these main deck and scavenging use makes maybe game 1 maybe slightly favorable for them. It just really depends on the draws, really. But it's definitely a close matchup. I don't really know that I'm picking this deck because it can win the mirror as much as I feel like it's got a really good feel against the rest of the field. I'm not really sure why more people don't play it, but I've definitely enjoyed it. But like I said, I recently moved this to the main deck. I was playing the Primal Command for a while, and even though it was the only card I had 5, like it just felt very, very awkward. I've got enough 3 and 2 drops that I have no problem. Plus, you kind of want to empty your hand anyway just to get the Liliana rolling, and you're Deathclouding over the top anyway at 5 easily, because Deathcloud for 2 and 3 all day. Pretty much that. I mean, I've cast this for 4 and even 5 before, but the bread and butter Deathcloud play is Deathcloud for 2 or 3. Their hand's probably already going to be low. 3 is pretty much the game ender. 2 usually is game winning. But putting 2 or 3, what's that 2 mana card that does the same thing for just 2 mana called? Smallpox. Getting to put 2 or 3 smallpoxes in a single card is just disgusting. It's worth noting that when this guy dies to a Damnation or a Deathcloud, yes, you do get the 2/2s. His ability still triggers if you have to sack him to a Deathcloud or a Damnation. Garruk Wildspeaker. Garruk Wildspeaker, obviously very, very good synergy. With Deathcloud, very, very good synergy because it can not only, it can also, it's kind of a really good partner for Liliana. Produces the tokens to block. The trample is really good at finishing the game. The untaps with the double lands and stuff, as we've talked about, can sometimes even make this a 0 mana net cost when you drop him, which is just ridiculous. And when you're doing those kind of plays, he's already at overrun damage. He's just absolutely disgusting. Very, very good, solid card for the Deathcloud build. But we're going to go here at Tasigur. Single Tasigur over the top. This card's been excellent. Almost always cast for 1. Lets you continuously put stuff back into your hand and just grind your opponent down into nothing. I considered putting a second Tasigur in the Primal Command slot for a long time, but I really wanted this third Rain of Tears for the Tron matchup. But yeah, he's absolutely amazing. I would at least run one Tasigur in this build 100%. He's almost never been bad. This is our Tarmogoyf, and it's much better in Tarmogoyf, and it costs half as much mana. So excellent. There's usually no problem delving for him. 3 Deathclouds in the main. I tried 2 for a while. It wasn't enough. I tried 4 in the main. It felt like too much unless you're going for a matchup where you really wanted him, which is part of the reason I put the 4th copy in the sideboard. But you definitely want to have access to this card at some point in the game. You don't want to be drawing multiple of them early in the game, but you always want to have access to one, so that's a good number, I think, for 3. Good rule for certain cards like that. But this is the namesake card of the deck, and it just slams people. And I'll go over my sideboard real quick. Single Thoughtseize. A lot of times you bring this in when the Inquisitions are bad, but sometimes you bring it in addition when all these cards are good and you just want to be able to slam the hands down fast as possible. Extra removal. The Victim Knight, yet again, I like this a lot better than a Doomblade. A Putrefy, I like it better than... I considered Dismember here, but at the same time, I want to be able to kill big stuff with the card I'm bringing in here. An extra Damnation on the side, so we can play triple Damnation against the aggro decks. 3 Rain of Tears. This is mainly for Tron, but there are actually surprisingly a lot of decks I've played against on here where I don't know if it's so much this card's amazing as much as certain cards in my build just aren't very good against what my opponent's trying to do. And being able to bring in these Rain of Tears to just simply play the old school mana screw them with Stone Rain strategy has been really good. It's surprisingly effective with Eternal Witness. Being able to just mana screw someone with Stone Rains is kind of funny. But definitely very powerful against Tron. There's a very good chance they can't make their plays, but honestly, to beat Tron, you really got to stay on top of them. So you really want to be Rain of Tearsing early to stop them from making Tron. It's very difficult to beat a Resolve Wormcoil Engine. I mean, there's some things you can do to make removing it not as problematic, but you don't really have a lot of ways to remove it. You got the Damnations, obviously, but those aren't even exactly what you want to be doing against Tron. The best way to really beat them is to get Rain of Tears down on them and then get a quick Deathcloud off and pretty much crush them before they ever get off the ground. It's just not an excellent matchup because it's much easier for them to resolve a Wormcoil Engine than it is for you to just completely mana screw the shit out of them. But with 4 Witnesses and 3 Rain of Tears, it's definitely possible, and I've been able to win the matchup. Actually, a fair bit more adding the 3rd copy. 2 copies simply wasn't enough. I didn't see the card enough. But it's definitely good in other matchups as well. The Curse of Death Soul. Another way to screw over kind of like the tribal decks. It's also excellent against Affinity. Excellent against goblins, elves, anything with tiny little creatures. It doesn't affect my creatures, so it's not going to kill my kitchen finxes when they come back. All around, it's really impressed me. I wasn't sure how I'd like the card at 5, but I actually liked it quite a bit more than Knight of Soul's Betrayal. Scavenging Ooze, and Nihil Spellbomb, and Relic of the Opportunist. And I'm running 3 different sideboard Grave Hate cards here, and there are just so many matchups where you need to be able to kill their graveyard, from, Storm to any kind of dredgy stuff to just people who simply make good use of the graveyard like we do. The decks that use a Collected Company combo with their own Kitchen Finxes and Red Caps, other people's using Witnesses, Snapcaster Mages, Shrinking Tarmogoyfs, like these cards are just really good. I kind of like having a good spread of them. The Scavenging Ooze, yet again, is pretty good against the aggro decks as well. Damnation the board or just kill creatures, start healing up, and now you got a nasty, disgusting blocker. The Spellbomb is really nice because it doesn't hit my graveyard, which I do use, as well as drawing me the card. So it's +1. These 2 artifacts happen to be pretty good underneath Deathcloud, because obviously artifacts don't die to Deathcloud. I like having the single relic, even though it kills my own yard. partially because it has that tap ability. So, like for instance, if someone loses a kitchen finks and they have nothing else in their yard, you can simply make them get rid of it with relic. And if you open with a relic, it's not too hard to keep their yard clean. And then if you ever do need to cantrip, you always can, and then bin the yards. So it's nice having that cantrip ability on them. Um, Extra copy of Eternal Witness. In so many matchups, it's good when you're sideboarding out certain cards to be able to pick up the cards you need and use them over and over again, like the Damnation. Like bringing in Eternal Witness with a Damnation would is almost like getting to bring in extra copies of the Damnation, because once you're at 3, it's very easy to draw the first copy, and then getting to pick another one up and maybe even chump block in between. It's almost as good as getting the second Damnation with the same time you can bring it in so many other matchups. A lot of times when the Kitchen Finks is bad, Eternal Witness is excellent in the more controlling matchups. Single Creeping Corrosion, little bit of a hedge against Affinity, just blows them out. It also happens to be very good against tons of artifact builds. Anything that wants to be using Mox Opal, crazy weird Belcher builds, the wannabe wishes it still had, what's it called? Not Faith's Reward, that's the one it still has. Second Sunrise decks that use this Salving Station and all that, as well as just decks that have lots of artifacts in general. Just a very, very good card to bring a single one in and blow decks like that out if you can draw it. Yet again, if you can pick it back up, usually just one resolution should crush those decks, but very, very good. And then finally, 2 Obstinate Baloths. Obstinate Baloth is not only very, very good against aggressive decks, it's good against Liliana Mirrors when you can use their Liliana's Plus to discard it and put it into play for free. Good against a deck like Burn, where you can block their little tiny dudes and gain life. Good against the Eldrazi aggro decks, in that it can block Thought-Knot Seer, remove the damage it just did, as well as if they play a Reality Smasher, you can aim your removal at the Reality Smasher and then discard the Baloth and play it for free, which is absolutely excellent. Just a really, really, really good card. I'm going to be posting, I have a lot of games played with this deck, so I'm definitely going to be uploading some of them. So I hope you guys enjoy that. I know most of you guys probably watch for my Commander stuff, since that's what I do the most of, so I'm assuming that's where most of my viewers are. But I've really enjoyed this deck, even though it's not the kind of style I normally play. And I definitely think it's a little bit better than where people have it positioned so far. In 1v1 queues and the tournament practice room, I've been crushing with this deck. I don't lose a whole lot. The worst matchup has definitely been Tron in the past, though it's just a single extra Rain of Tears has made the matchup feel a lot better, though it's still not good. Yeah, some of the Collected Company type and Jund type mirrors can be difficult, but I still think we're not too much of underdogs. And honestly, I think this deck has game against just about anything in the format. The control matchup hasn't been as bad. The Deathcloud is just so good against so many of the decks that typically give these kind of decks problems, in my opinion. And I've been having a lot of fun playing it. So hopefully I'll get to show you some of these games in the future. And for now, that's my deck tech. Moxnick signing out. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention, I guess, before the end. A lot of people like running the Destructo lands, which I guess is kind of also a hedge against Tron. But the problem with those is that Ghost Quarter, which is the better at breaking up Tron, is just horrible synergy with this deck in general. You don't want to draw it against anything. Though you can kind of manage having the colorless land. Yet again, this could be another thing where getting the extra damage from Overgrown Tomb might be okay. But it's just so bad in general. With the way the deck works, it's like the opposite of what you want to be doing with Deathcloud. And the Tectonic Edges, though, they're actually that I'm actually kind of a little more interested in, which is kind of good in the controlling matches, maybe just to kill a Colonnade or something like that. It just takes so long to get them online. They do nothing for you against the Tron matchup, and I feel like I'm already doing decent against those control decks. We already have a decent amount of way to eat at their hand. The Lilianas are obviously very good against them. The Deathcloud in general is just really strong, the kind of like a must counter card. But yeah, that's my deck tech for now. If I have any major updates, I'll tell you. But I've grinded this deck. I played it for multiple weeks, so I definitely feel like it's fairly solid at where it's at right now. Mox.